Hey everybody, I am going to be um, covering chapters 1 and 2 from Designs for Science Literacy. Trey has a separate video covering chapter 8. So let's get started. They're kind of long chapters, so I tried to my best to break it down into kind of the most important things. So chapter 1 was all about curriculum design. So there were 5 main ideas going through this chapter. So the first one was identifying goals. So if your task was to come up with a new curriculum, first thing you want to do is define some goals. So those are learning goals. Some things to think about: investment, so time and money. So how much time do you have to design this new curriculum? What are your resources? Things like that. Also, the rationale. Why are you designing a new curriculum? What is the point? And what do you hope to get out of it? Specificity. Again, how specific are you going to be with this new curriculum? And feasibility. You want to make sure that you're designing something that's feasible for your district or the school that you are designing this for. The second big idea was constraints. So again, time. How much time do you have? Are there any laws that you have to take into account when coming up with this new curriculum? Money. How much money do you have to put towards paying people to work on this new curriculum? And also think about parents and community. When you're designing a new curriculum, are there going to be things about your curriculum that might get the community upset or get them involved? That could be like a science curriculum that has an emphasis on evolution that could upset some people, and you might have to address that, or like a sex ed kind of curriculum, just things to think about. The third main topic was conceptualizing the curriculum design. So in that part, this is where you're thinking about instructional concepts and teaching methods. So is this curriculum going to be an inquiry-based science curriculum or hands-on? Or is this going to be maybe a language immersion kind of curriculum where you're teaching a foreign language? That's where you want to think about how are we actually going to deliver this information. In the last 2 parts of chapter 1, actually developing the curriculum. So like a lot of things in education, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So in a lot of cases, you can copy or modify an existing curriculum design. So if you're going to modify something, you might need to compartmentalize, figure out what actually needs to be changed or focused on. Do you want to emphasize something in an existing design more than it has been? And then as you're developing, you want to test your curriculum in schools to make sure that it is doing what you want it to do. And then also in that development stage, you can do a cost analysis, risk assessment, and look for any sort of trade-offs if something's not quite working. And then in refining, that last step, this is where you're actually going to check for learning results. So after you have implemented a new curriculum, you want to see, are those goals being met? This can be done internally. So teachers and administration can internally, in the school, monitor, see how things are going. Or you can have visiting committees. So that's like an external monitoring system. So people can come in and evaluate how the curriculum is going. So that's chapter 1. Chapter 2 was all about curriculum specifications. So this one had 3 main parts. The first one was with curriculum structure. And the first big idea was with the configuration of time. So essentially, that's what a curriculum does. It tells you how to use your time. And there's a difference between clock time and calendar time. So clock time is going to be more of like scheduling and how is the day-to-day going to look. But then calendar time is looking on the big scale, like grade level kind of blocks of time. And when looking at that structure, so there were different options for what grades to look at when kind of breaking it down. So like you could go grade by grade, like have a curriculum for kindergarten, then first grade, then second grade, or you could have an overarching K through 12, like very like long time span kind of curriculum. But what they suggested is it makes a little bit more sense to do 4 different blocks in the K through 12 system. So early elementary, so K through 2, that could be a block that has one curriculum, and then 3 through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. In those blocks of time, the curriculum will be structured differently. So core versus elective time. Core, those are classes that everyone has to take. So in those younger blocks, typically those are all core classes. There's not a lot of time for electives. So like in kindergarten and first grade, all students take all the same classes. But then that becomes more elective time at the higher grade levels. Also need to think about pathways. So what is it going, sorry, what is the curriculum going to look like for students as they progress through school? Are they all going to follow the same pathway, or is there going to be different pathways that they can take in order to graduate? Schedule variation. So semester versus year-long classes. Is it going to be a block or a 45-minute period? Things like that. And then instructional format. So is it going to be a traditional kind of lecture kind of class, or is it going to be a seminar more based on text, independent study, or projects? What kind of format is going to work best depending on what age group and what the goal of your curriculum is. So then second main idea for chapter 2 was curriculum content. So distribution. So that's kind of the big ideas. You got science, math, arts and humanities, and technology. What is the focus going to be in those blocks of time? So let me move that. So here's an example for your science, technology, and math. Maybe K through 12, it's not very specific. You're kind of overarching, you're teaching all of those topics together. And then in your 3 through 5 grade levels, math becomes a little bit more of its own separate course. But then your science and technology are still kind of together. But then you get into middle school and you start having different, more specific classes, and it keeps getting more specific at those higher grade levels. And then also with curriculum content, the organization. So discipline-based or integrated. So again, is it going to be a separate discipline? So kind of like we have over here, like all the courses are very separate, or integrated means that they're being taught a little bit more together. So if y'all have any experience with integrated math, I don't. I've taught like Algebra 2 and Geometry as separate courses, but in integrated math, those geometry concepts are taught through like where you'd have Algebra 1, then Geometry, then Algebra 2. The geometry concepts are taught in an integrated method, so that's just a different way that your curriculum content can be organized. You need to make a decision about that. And then the last big idea was curriculum operation. So again, student pathways, are there going to be different pathways for students to take or not? Staff development. So for a curriculum to be successful, staff needs to be able to implement it. So what sort of professional development is required for teachers to feel prepared to implement a curriculum? What sort of instructional resources are needed, and then also monitoring to make sure that the curriculum is operating the right way. Oops, there we go. And here are my discussion questions for y'all. So first question, you can choose to answer. So what are the curriculum goals for your school? Do you think that they're effective? If so, why are they effective? And if not, how come? Second question, if you were on a committee to build a new curriculum for your school, what do you anticipate would be the most difficult part of designing a new curriculum and why? And then my third question, at your school, what sort of professional development was provided to you for curriculum implementation? Awesome. Thanks a lot, y'all.